myself Shweta Shah. I am an instructor for the subject Computer Organization and Architecture. In this subject, we are going to start today Unit 9, that is Memory Organization. And we are going to see today the topic, that is Memory Hierarchy and the main memory. Before starting with the topic, let me see what are the outline for this unit. These are like, first we will see the memory hierarchy and the main memory. Then we will see the auxiliary memory and the associative memory. Then we will see the cache memory and the virtual memory. So let me first start with the topic, that is memory hierarchy. The memory unit is an essential component in any digital computer since it is needed for the storage of program and the data. A very small computer with a limited application may be able to fulfill its intended task without the need of the additional storage capacity. But the most general purpose computer would run more efficiently if they were equipped with the additional storage beyond the capacity of the main memory. There is just not enough space in a one memory unit to accommodate all the programs used in a typical computer. So the most user accumulates and continues to be accumulating the large amount of the data while the processing the softwares. Not all the accumulated information is needed by the processor at the same time. Therefore, it is the more economical to use the low-cost storage device to serve as a backup for the storing of the information that is not currently used by the CPU. So, the memory unit that communicates directly with the CPU can be called as a main memory. The device that provides the backup storage that can be known as the auxiliary memory. The most common auxiliary memory devices used in the computer systems are the magnetic tapes and the disks. They are used for storing the system programs, larger data files and the other backup information. The only programs and the data currently needed by the processor that resides in the main memory. All other information that is stored in the auxiliary memory and transferred into the main memory when needed. So, the total memory capacity of the computer can be visualized as a being hierarchy of the components. The memory hierarchy system consists of the old storage device employed in a computer system, from the slow but the high capacity auxiliary memory to the relatively faster main memory to an even smaller and the faster cache memory accessible to the high speed processing logics. The next figure illustrates the component in the typical memory hierarchy, that is consisting of the main magnetic tapes or the magnetic disk, then that are connected with the main memory by means of some I/O processor, and the cache memory that is directly connected with the main memory. So let me see at the bottom of the hierarchy, there is relatively slow magnetic tapes that are used for the storing of the removable files, and the next are the magnetic disks that are used for the backup storage. The main memory occupies the central processing by being able to communicate directly with the CPU and with the auxiliary memory device through the I/O processor. When the programs not residing in the memory are needed by the CPU, they are brought from the auxiliary memory, and the programs that are not currently needed in the memory are transferred into the auxiliary memory to provide the space for the currently used programs and the data. So we can consider this kind of hierarchy. A special high-speed memory that is known as a cache is sometimes used to increase the speed of the processing by making the current programs and data available to the CPU at the rapid rate. The cache is utilized for the storing segments of the program currently being executed in the CPU and the temporary data frequently needed in the present calculations. The cache memory is employed in the computer system to compensate for the speed of the differential between the main memory access time and the processing logic. The small cache between the CPU and memory has an access time close to the processor logic clock cycle time. So, it can work faster. While the I/O processor manages the data transfer between the the auxiliary memory and the main memory, the cache organization is concerned with the transfer of the information between the main memory and the CPU. So for the auxiliary memory, we can use the I/O processor to communicate with main memory, and for the cache memory, some cache organization is used for this communication. As the storage capacity of the memory increases, the cost per bit for storing the binary information decreases and the access time for the memory becomes the longer. The auxiliary memory has the large storage capacity, is relatively inexpensive but has a low access speed as compared to the main memory. While the cache memory is very small and relatively expensive and has a very high access speed, thus this memory access speed is increasing and so does the relatively cost. The overall goal of using the memory hierarchy is to obtain the highest possible average access speed while minimizing the total cost of your entire system. So the auxiliary memory and the cache memory are used for this different purpose. The cache holds the part of the program and data are the most heavily used, while the auxiliary memory holds those parts that are not presently used by the CPU. Moreover, the CPU has the direct access to the both cache and main memory but not to the auxiliary memory. The transfer from the auxiliary memory to the main memory usually done by the means of the direct memory access of the large block of the data. The typical access time ratio between the cache and main memory is about 1 to 7. For example, a typical cache memory may have access time of 100 nanoseconds while the main memory has the access time of 700 nanoseconds. So that means 7 times larger access time of the main memory as compared to cache memory. Auxiliary memory average access time is usually 1000 times that of the main memory. The block size of the auxiliary memory typically ranges from 256 to 2048 words, while the cache block size is typically from the 1 to 60 words. So these are the basic difference between this auxiliary memory and the cache memory. Next we will see the main memory. So the main memory is the central storage unit in the computer system. It is relatively large and faster memory used to store the program and data during the computer operation. The principal technology used for the main memory is based on the semiconductor integrated circuits. Majorly we can use the RAM and ROM. RAM, that is random access memory, and ROM, that is read only memory. So let first we see RAM. The integrated circuit RAM chips are available in two possible operating modes, that are static and dynamic. The static RAM consists of the The static RAM consists essentially of the internal flip-flops that stores the binary information. The stored information remains valid as long as the power is applied to the unit, while the dynamic RAM stores the binary information in forms of electric charge that are applied to the capacitor, and the capacitor provided inside the chip by the MOS transistor. The stored charge on the capacitor tend to discharge with the time, and the capacitor must be periodically recharged by refreshing. Is done by the cycling through the words every few milliseconds to restore the decaying charge. The dynamic RAM offers reduced power consumption and larger storage capacity in the single memory chip. The static RAM is easier to use and has a shorter read and write cycle. So let me see second one, that is ROM, that is read only memory. The most of the main memory in general purpose computer is made up of RAM integrated circuit chips, but the portion of the memory may be constructed with the ROM chips also. The originally RAM was used to refer to the random access memory, but now it is used to designate the read and write memory to distinguish it from the read only memory. Although ROM is also a random access. Here what random access, that means you can access any of its location. The RAM is used for storing the bulk of the programs and data that are subjected to the change, and the ROM is used to store the program that are permanently resides in the computer and for the tables of the constant and do not change the value once the production of the computer is completed. So, among other things, the ROM portion of the main memory is needed for the storing of the initial program called as a bootstrap loaders. This bootstrap loaders is the program whose function is to start the computer software operating when the power is turned on. Since RAM is volatile, its contents are destroyed when the power is turned off. The content of ROM remains unchanged after power is turned off or on again. Next we will see the RAM and ROM chips. This is the diagram for the RAM chip that has a two chip selection, that is chip selection 1 and chip selection 2. Then has a read write control to read and write the data, and it has its address line to address its location. For example, here our memory size is a 128 cross 8. That means it has total 128 location and each location can store the word of 8 bit. Okay, so total locations for addressing here is a 128. To address this 128 location, we will require 2 raised to x, that is equals to 128. So for value of x will be 7 because 2 raised to 7 is equals to 128. So we will require 7-bit binary address to address all of this location of this RAM. So we have total 7 address line for this 128 cross 8 RAM, and read and write control to reading and writing at that location. If you want to read the location's content, then you have to provide the read control, and if you want to write at that location, then you have to provide the write access. Here chip select 1 and 2 are used to select the particular chip, because in the system we may have used more than one chips, and at that time to select that particular chip we can use this chip select 1 and chip select 2. Here chip select 2 is active low and chip select 1 is active high. That means you have to provide 1 at chip select 1 and 0 at chip select 2 to activate this chip. Second one is a ROM. ROM also contains the chip select 1 and chip select 2 and also the control for reading. Here the size for the ROM is of 512 cross 8. That means you have total 512 locations and each location can contain at 8 bit. And to address this 512 location, we will require 512 is equals to 2 raised to x. Here value of x will be 9 because 512 is equals to 2 raised to 9. So our address will be of 9 bit. So we will require 9 address line to address all of this location. Here we can provide the table like this. This chip select 1 is 0 and chip select 2 is 1. Then and only then this two chips are going to be selected. Otherwise this whole chip will be in high impedance state. To read the data, you have to provide read as a 1 and write as a 0. And to write the data, you have to provide write signal as a 1 and read as a 0. Okay, so by this way we can use this RAM and ROM chips. Next we will see the memory address map. The designer of the computer system must calculate the amount of the memory required for the particular application and assign it to the either RAM or ROM. The interconnection between the memory and processor is then established from the knowledge of the size of the memory needed and the type of the RAM and ROM chips available. The addressing of the memory can be established by means of the table that specifies the memory address assigned to the each chip. The memory address map is the pictorial representation of the assigned address space to the each chip in the memory. So, to demonstrate, with the particular example, assume that a computer system needed 520 byte of the RAM and 520 byte of the ROM. We will provide this RAM direct by means of 4 different RAMs and ROM by one chip of the ROM. So let me see how we can do. We have used 4 RAM of 128 cross 8, and that will sum up with 512 cross 8 RAM size, and ROM of 1 chip, that is of 512 cross 8. Here this table memory address, here the memory address map for the configuration is shown in the table. In column specifies whether the RAM or the ROM chip is used. The hexadecimal address column assigns a range of the hexadecimal equivalent address to each chip, and the address bus lines are listed in the third column. There is 16 lines in the address bus. The table shows only 10 lines because all other 6 lines in this examples are assumed to be 0. And the small x under the address bus line designate those lines that must be connected to each chip. So let me see. Here RAM chip have a 128 byte and needed 7 address line as we discussed earlier, and ROM chip has a 512 byte and will need the 9 address line. The axes are always assigned to a lower order buses, line 1 through 7 for the RAM and line 1 to 9 for the ROM. It is now necessary to distinguish between the RAM chips by assigning to each different address. For this particular example, we choose the bus lines 8 and 9 to represent the 4 distinct binary combination. Not that any other part of the unused bus line can be chosen for this purpose. Not only line number 8 and 9, you can use any of line from 16. Memory space for RAM is equals to 2⁹, that is equals to 512 byte. The distinguish between the RAM and ROM address is done with the another bus line. Here we have chosen line number 10 for this purpose. When this line 10 is 0, CPU selects the RAM, and when the line is equals to 1, it selects the ROM. After selecting the 10 number line, if the selection is 0, that means you have to select the RAM, then it will check for the line 8 and 9 to select particular RAM 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So we can write it like this for this RAM 1 and ROM. Like RAM 1 will have address line as a 9 and 8 number line as a 00, and 10 number line is 0 for all of this RAM. For RAM 2, that 9 and 8 lines are 01. For RAM 3, 9 and 8 lines are 10, and for RAM 4, 9 and 8 lines are 1. And for the ROM, 10 number line is a 1, and all other lines can be 0 or 1 depending upon the address. So these are represented by X, or you can say don't care. This is the connection for this memory to the CPU. Here we have connected read and write to all of the RAM, and only read to the chip selection of the ROM, because in ROM you can only read the data. Then we are going to providing the address line 1 to 7 directly to the RAM and also to the ROM, plus the address line 8 and 9 for the ROM, because ROM requires 9 address line. After that, we will use this 8 and 9 lines to select the particular RAM. So we have used one extra circuit decoder over there. Decoder decodes 8 and 9 lines, and according to the output of the decoder, your chip select of RAM 1 or RAM 2 or RAM 3 or RAM 4 is done. And one another selection we are using, that is 10, that is provided to the chip select 2 for the RAM, and that is provided to the chip ROM by inverting, because we have to select when the 10 number line is 1. So here for the row 10 number line is 1, that is provided after inverting, that means it will be 0 and that will select that particular row. So by this way we can connect all of your RAMs and ROMs to the CPU by means of some address lines and some decoders. So we are ending our today's session over here. If you have any query, then you can